Hey everyone, this is Mike with TechneekTV.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to edit partitions on your hard drive. Normally when you install Windows 7, it'll use the entire hard disk or whatever space is available to it to install to, making only one partition. This is of course an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage being that you'll have the entire hard drive for space for Windows 7, and the disadvantage being that you can only have Windows 7 on there. So if you want to install a different operating system such as Linux or BSD or even an older version of Windows, you'll have to make a partition. So to do this, we want to open the Start menu and click Control Panel. Now you want to make sure your view by is small icons or large icons, not category. And you want to click Administrative Tools. Now click Computer Management. Now in the Computer Management window on the left side of the screen under Storage, click Disk Management. And now you will be presented with the Partition tool in Windows 7. Alright, so for this example I'll be using my Windows 7 partition, or hard drive, because my whole 250 gigabyte hard drive is my Windows 7 partition. So I'll click it on the graphical menu, and then I'll right click it, and let's say I want to shrink the size of the Windows 7 partition so I can install Linux on it, which I'm going to be doing. So you right click it and press shrink volume, and it'll say querying volume for available shrink space, please wait. And I want to say, before you do any messing around with partitions, you want to defragment your hard drive. You can use a tool like Defraggler by Piriform Software, or you can just use the basic built-in Windows defragmenter. They're both the same thing, but I just prefer Defraggler instead. And about any minute now it should be finished querying the shrink space. And yeah, as you can see, I have a removable disk 2. That's actually a flash drive. I have Arch Linux installed to it because I'm going to be installing that right after this tutorial. Alright, so now we have a new box that says Shrink C. It'll show us the total size before shrinking in megabytes. It's 238,473 megabytes. That has a 250 gigabyte hard disk. And then it'll show you how much you can shrink the existing partition by. And in this case is 117,874. And then this third box will let you edit how much you want to shrink the partition by. I'm just going to leave it at the default. But let's say you wanted to shrink it by 4 gigabytes. You would type in 4096, or you could type in 2048 for 2 gigs. Doesn't really matter, but I'm just gonna leave it at the default. Oh, and you can also use the arrows on the right to adjust it. But yeah, let's put it back to the default. And then it will show you in the fourth box the total size after the shrink, which will be 120,599 megabytes, or roughly 120 gigabytes. So we'll click shrink. And now we should be presented with a 117 gigabyte unallocated hard drive partition once it finishes. And while we're waiting, this graphical menu just shows you all your hard disks. My disk 0 is a 1 terabyte hard drive. I actually have Mac OS X installed on it. It has a 200 megabyte EFI partition, 125 gigabyte partition for OS X, and then I have a system storage partition which I use for Windows. It's 806 gigabytes. Alright, so now we have a 115.11 gigabyte partition that's unallocated space, meaning it's not being used by anything. and it was supposed to be 117, but when it's formatted, it is actually less. All right, so let's say we want to use this new partition, and we wanted to use it only for music. You would right-click this unallocated space, click New Simple Volume, and now a wizard will pop up. Just click Next, and it'll let you choose the amount of size that you can use to make the new partition with. It says maximum disk space in megabytes 117,874. The minimum space in megabytes you can make this new partition is 8. So we'll just leave it at the default. Press Next. And you want to assign the following drive letter in most cases. It doesn't really matter what you use, so we'll just use A, I guess. You can also mount in the following empty NTFS folder. This will basically, instead of giving the partition a drive letter, it will kind of link the partition to a folder just as if it was a different folder. So it's more transparent that way. So we'll just assign it the following drive letter A. Press Next, and you want to click Format this volume with the following settings. Leave the file system as NTFS. For the allocation unit size, leave it at the default. And for the volume label, name it whatever you want. We'll just name it Test. Make sure Perform a Quick Format is checked, otherwise it will take quite a bit of time. And check Enable File and Folder Compression. They'll just compress the size of files on there so you'll be able to fit more stuff into it. Press Next and then Finish. And it'll say Formatting and then it'll be finished. Now there we go. We have a new test partition. And if we open up my computer, we'll see that we now have 3 hard disk drives. It says this because Windows is unable to differentiate between partitions and hard drives. And we can open test and we can put whatever we want in it. We can put some scripts that I made right in there. And see, it's just like anything else. And you'll notice that the names are actually blue, and that is because they are compressed files, because we enabled file and folder compression. Alright, so now let's say that we didn't want this partition anymore, the test partition we just made. First, you want to make sure you back up anything important on the partition that you need, and then you can just open up the disk partition tool like we did before, and we can right-click it, and we can press Delete Volume. We'll say deleting this volume will erase all data on it, back up any data you want to keep before deleting. Do you want to continue? Yes, we want to continue. It'll delete the volume and we will be back to 115.11 gigabytes of unallocated space. So this is pretty much just the basics of using the partition tool in Windows 7 to edit partitions. Partitions can be really cool and useful, really useful actually, for installing Windows and reformatting your computer. Yeah, I really just suggest everyone use a multi-partition setup on their hard drive. For example, I use one partition called Windows 7 just for the Windows 7 operating system. And then I have a separate partition called System Storage, which I just store all my documents, pictures, movies, etc. on. So whenever you want to reinstall Windows, just wipe the Windows 7 partition, and you'll still have all your movies, documents, whatever, on the storage partition, which will be completely untouched by the Windows installer. So I hope you found this video interesting and maybe learned a few tips, like regarding Windows installation. Sorry, I can't talk, I have a cold. And yeah, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to TechneekTV if you want to keep up with our videos. And you can actually find us on Facebook. We have a new page that's just called TechneekTV.com. And as usual, we have our website, TechneekTV.com. We've actually been adding some articles to it, which will not be found on YouTube since they're just text. And yeah, we'll just keep adding videos as well. Alright, thanks for watching.